Testing one, two, one, two, essai.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Financial Innovation Sectoral Forum. Kindly note that you will be invited to participate in a poll during the session. The poll will be available on the Eventi app, so please ensure that the app is installed on your mobile phone. And you will find that on each table there is an information sheet on which a WhatsApp number is available. You may use the number to assist you with the Eventi app. Please also note that you have been kindly requested to participate in a survey that has been launched on the Eventi app under the newsfeed. The newsfeed icon can be found on the right-hand side on your browser, and on your mobile app, it will be under the news section. I hope that you have a meaningful session today. Thank you.
Pointer. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Mauritius Research and Innovation Council, a warm welcome to you all, and a big thank you for everyone who accepted our invitation to kindly join us today on this session on financial innovation, which is one of 6 sessions being conducted by the Mauritius Research and Innovation Council under the Assises de la Recherche et de l'Innovation over the 3-day period. It started yesterday, it's going on until tomorrow. So at the level of the MRIC, a technical committee was set up to start looking into different aspects about financial innovation. There were 3 meetings held at the council between February and early April, and there have been discussions offline as well. The technical committee involved several people, different institutions, as wide as possible from the sector. It included participation from some members who are not listed on the committee, but who kindly provided their inputs through email and other exchanges. The 3 key areas that were being considered by the technical committee in terms of financial innovation are looking for answers about where we are, where we want to go, and how to reach there. The next speaker, Mrs. Devina Pillay-Naikan, will be going into a little bit more detail about what these discussions went into, what were the issues that were handled, and what were the main recommendations or conclusions or proposals that are coming out from those discussions. This is still at the level of discussion. There's no finality in what's been proposed. So we hope that all the discussions that will be held today and tomorrow as well will help probably take these proposals further. And later on, after 2 presentations early this morning, you will have a panel session between 10:45 and noon, which will be moderated by Mrs. Pillay-Naikan, and we'll have 8 panelists on board. So there'll be a series of questions that you'll be able to ask, as well as questions that the moderator will be putting to the panel for discussion. So without much taking more of your time, I will now request Mrs. Devina Pillay-Naikan to come and join us and make her presentation. Just a few words about Mrs. Devina. She joined the Ministry of Financial Services and Good Governance. She's actually manager at the Ministry of Financial Services and Good Governance. She joined the ministry in June 2018 where the main tasks were to implement and devise new strategies to develop the financial services sector. She is responsible for the oversight of a team of assistant managers and analysts. She began her career at the State Bank of Mauritius as a legal officer before being appointed as the company secretary of SBM Holdings in 2014. She has been actively involved with different departments of the banking sector, and in 2016, she joined the transaction advisory team of Ernst & Young. She holds a maîtrise en droit des affaires from the University of Réunion, a postgraduate in cybercrime from the Asian School of Cyber Law in Pune, India. And she's also a board member of the Financial Services Institute Limited. Mrs. Devina Pili-Naikan, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gopal, for the introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I think today we're going to talk about financial innovation, but before getting into the gist of financial innovation as a thematic, I would like to just share with you the reason for which we believe innovation is important. Why are we here today? If we look at what's working. So, if you look at the history of Mauritius, we've been from a monocrop economy, I would say in the 1960s and 50s. We've transformed into an industrial economy, then moved to the services economy, and today we are targeting to be a high-income economy, a high-income country. In order to meet this objective, there are certain key measures that need to be taken, certain bold initiatives that need to be taken, and one of them is to be able to transform the means of our industry into an innovation-driven one. So this is the first reason for which innovation is important for this country, for our jurisdiction. So once we've understood the reason for which we are talking about innovation, it's important to understand why financial innovation is important. Financial services contributes to around 13% of our GDP. The sector is expected to double its contribution until 2030. It is important to understand that it has the potential to be one of the key pillars of our economy. Mauritius wants to position itself as a fintech hub for the region and also an international financial center. So financial innovation actually demonstrates all the interesting and important aspects that can bring the jurisdiction to this high-income economy target. Now, let us get into the gist of the financial innovation. When we talk about innovation, it's interesting to understand what have we done over the past 50 years. What has been the real star of financial innovation in Mauritius and internationally? There has been one answer for that, and I think it has been the ATM. ATM has changed the way people relate to cash, people relate to machine, people relate to transactions which are not face-to-face. The ATM has begun to play a very key role in making people believe that they can trust automation. It has been also, I would say, an innovation which has evolved with time. ATM has been quietly transforming our relationship. Today, most people have a credit card. Most people can access their account almost 24/7. ATM can be found in the higher mountains of Himalaya, below the decks in naval warship, as well as in front of the churches. ATM has begun to play a key role in disaster recovery. I believe that it's important for us to remember that even in Mauritius, when there was the COVID-19, there was a total lockdown of the country. There were certain financial institutions which even went to set up an ATM in certain areas so that people could access their money and be able to retrieve their account. But the question is, should we remain happy with having had ATM over the last 50 years, or do we need to have a legacy for our future generation? We should not forget that the ATM was created abroad, but Mauritius, we have all the potential to come up with other innovative financial products. So as Dr. Gopal rightly mentioned, we've met on several occasions. There was a technical committee. The members were already actually highlighted in the previous discussions. The scope of the technical committee was to discuss where we are, where we want to go, and how to reach there. There were several meetings that were held. We've made a report, and the draft report was circulated. But what's important is, what are we going to discuss today? Today, the discussion will be around, I want to have a structured discussion today. So we'll be discussing on what are the objectives and what are the initiatives that the country has already taken. That is, what have we achieved locally and in comparison to international countries? Where do we want to go? What are the challenges? And of course, in the afternoon, we'll be discussing about how do we reach there. So this morning, we'll be focusing on what have we done to implement financial innovation in Mauritius. Let me share with you first something which is very important. I'm sorry, I think that you won't be able to hear me. Let me move this a bit. Actually, the financial services sector has implemented a blueprint to grow the sector by twice, that is to double the contribution of the financial services sector, to double the contribution of the financial services sector by 2030. It also has the objective to position Mauritius as an international financial center of repute and substance, to position Mauritius as the ideal platform for investment. This roadmap was actually mandated by the Ministry and the Financial Services Commission in 2018, and it was actually done by the help of the consultants, McKinsey. So what does this roadmap actually propose? It already earmarks the key pillars that can bring change into the sector. The key pillars are corporate banking, cross-border investment, private banking, and wealth management. So already it allows the country, it allows the sector to know the areas of focus where we need to develop. Furthermore, the roadmap also highlights the 6 key imperatives that the country needs to focus on in order to meet this objective of doubling the contribution of the financial services sector to the GDP. In fact, there is a think tank, which is at the level of the ministry, known as the Financial Services Consultative Council, which actually has been working on implementing each of these key imperatives. That is to have a proper fiscal and regulatory regime. As you are aware, Mauritius has been in the FATF list and the EU list in 2020 and 2021. This has been quite, I would say, hard for the country, for the sector, because it was difficult to attract investment. However, lots of initiatives and measures have been taken together with the private sector. So there has been lots of collaboration between the public and the private sector in order to take Mauritius out of the list and implement the necessary measures to do that. So now that we are out of the list, we need to leverage on this tag, because Mauritius has received lots of, I would say, visibility by being on the FATF list, and now is the time to have the right formula for Mauritius to leverage on this and be in the forefront in terms of financial innovation. The second item is regarding to the fact of using user-friendly processes to serve investors. I must say that we've worked a lot with the Financial Services Commission as well as the Bank of Mauritius to be able to have very smooth processes to facilitate investors when they're coming to Mauritius by boosting the ease of doing business. The reputation and image building, we're aware that there is a lot to do in terms of image building, in terms of communicating, in terms of what's being done by the country. I think that during the committee, one thing that has really cropped up is that Mauritius is doing a lot, irrespective of the sectors. We are implementing, we're doing the right thing, but are we being seen doing the right thing? So this is also very important. You can have the best of products, you can have the best of processes, but if this is not properly disseminated, you will not necessarily meet the right target. Of course, to attract, retain, and develop our talent. Yesterday, there was a very interesting talk on peopleware. I still remember this has really, I think, marked the audience. People is at the center of development. So we need to have the right talent, the right skills, attracting the high caliber corporates. So how to make the big brands be able to come to Mauritius to understand that the jurisdiction is the right place to be by having the right stability, the right, I would say, political stability, economic stability, but at the same time that it is a place where you have the right ecosystem to be able to thrive. And finally, of course, infrastructure. I think a lot is being done already in terms of improving the infrastructure of the country. And of course, this is where we're getting more into the innovative part of finance. There are additional opportunities that need to be tapped into. So this blueprint also highlights the fact that over and above these existing pillars, these existing areas that we can tap into, there are other sectors that we need to develop. These are innovative capital markets, asset management, captive insurance, fintech. Fintech is one area that we'll be discussing a lot during the day. Cryptocurrency, blockchain and technology, reinsurance, and Islamic finance. So you can already see that in the additional part, we've got fintech, cryptocurrency, AI. But one thing that I would like to highlight here, it's not only about technology. It's true that innovation has a lot to do with bringing technology into a specific sector, but there can be cross-sector product actually. And one thing that the financial services sector has tried to do is to have new products which are actually in between the sectors. For instance, when you look at the financial services sector and the blue and green development, we've actually come with the green bond and the blue bond framework last year. If we look at financial services and information technology, we've come up with fintech, and fintech, and of course, englobes the blockchain, the cryptocurrency, whereby we have come up with the virtual asset and initial token of Freight Act. I don't want to go too much into these details because we've got experts in these fields who will be talking about it in the next panel. So now, one of the key point that we need to actually cover today is the current situation in Mauritius. What have we done in terms of policy, institution, and the legal framework? In fact, in several budget speeches, you must have heard of the fact that there is a commitment at highest level to position Mauritius as a fintech hub for the region. There's been close collaboration between the Ministry of Financial Services and Good Governance, with the Ministry of ICT, with the Ministry of Finance, to be able to come up with such, I would say, to design these products so that we can actually position Mauritius as a fintech hub. There's been the blueprint that we've seen. There was a report which was issued as the blueprint for the fintech sector to be able to earmark the key products that can already put Mauritius in the forefront as a fintech hub for the region. A series of budget measures to prioritize fintech development in Mauritius as from 2019, and of course, the implementation of a sustainable financing framework in 2020. In terms of institutional framework, it has been the signature of a cooperation agreement between FSC and Autorité des marchés financiers to promote the fintech sector in Mauritius. There's been the setting up of the Mauritius Africa Fintech Hub. I can see Mikhail here. There is a new sandbox framework which was introduced for the development of proof of concepts and pilot exercises. Actually, what was the regulatory sandbox? In fact, it has been one of the most innovative, I would say, initiative that has been taken, because very often you have, I would say, startups which come up with brilliant ideas, but unfortunately, they do not fall into a specific regulation or a specific license. So what do we do as a jurisdiction? So we just tell them, no, go away, you don't have a place to be able to set up your company? No, rather there was the sandbox which allowed these organizations, these startups, to be able to test their product, but at least be creative. So they had at least 1 year to test their product and see, in fact, which regulator was most relevant to their product and their line of activity. Just to highlight, the sandbox was initially at the level of the EDB. This has been actually divided into two segments now. There's one sandbox which is at the level of the Bank of Mauritius, and one sandbox which will sit under the aegis of the Financial Services Commission. And of course, there's been a technical committee which was set up under the aegis of the Ministry of Financial Services to look into the development of the fintech sector in Mauritius. As far as legal framework, as far as legal framework is concerned, there were three key legislation which were passed. That is the Electronic Transaction Act, the National Payment Switch Act, and very recently the Virtual Asset and Initial Token Offering Act of 2022, which we believe will be bringing groundbreaking changes in the landscape of fintech and in the way we see the financial innovation in Mauritius. So the next slide is one of the first questions that we'll be dealing in our session today. As Dr. Gopal actually mentioned, there is one app which you have been kindly requested to upload on your mobile, that is Eventi. So you have the possibility to answer to this question. So for Mauritius to become a digital society and accelerate the growth of fintech, digital KYC and customer due diligence must be embraced in all processes. So we'd like to have your views. You have 1 minute to select the answer. If you've already downloaded the app, we kindly request you to just choose the answer that you would like to provide. You have to go on Eventi. I think if somebody can please assist the gentleman. I think there is a specific section that you need to click on. Thank you. we can see how the statistics are changing online. Can we close the poll? Thank you. I think the answer is quite obvious in terms of most people, 83% out of 18 persons who have answered the poll agree that for Mauritius to become a digital society and accelerate the growth of fintech, digital KYC and customer due diligence must be embraced in all processes. In fact, I'm also, I would say, I would have liked to understand that 6% as well. Unfortunately, we do not have that possibility of discussing on the one-to-one, but it would be interesting to understand why there is a different view and maybe something which can be alternative. This can bring innovation as well. So it's very often interesting to see that people who's got a different view, how they can bring something different to meet the same perspective. I would invite you, the persons who maybe are interested among those who have actually signed up for the 6% to meet us afterwards. We'd be glad to discuss on why you believe this is not important and what are the ways we can work it differently. Thank you. So let us now move into more details in terms of the different players of the sector, how they've implemented financial innovation. So for the banking sector, we've taken it from the basis of three aspects, because when we've looked at financial innovation, it has been clearly defined as the act of creating financial instruments, of coming up with new institutions and framework, new financial products and new processes. So we've taken these three benchmarks to understand how the banking sector has actually implemented the financial innovation. So firstly, in terms of the institution and framework, last year, the Bank of Mauritius came up with its digital banking guidelines. There has been the National Payment Switch Act, which has been a very comprehensive framework for the regulation, oversight and supervision of national payment system and payment system operated in Mauritius. And in fact, I believe that it has also been a very interesting platform. In the panel discussions, we'll have a bit more time to understand how it has worked and what has been the adoption rate of this product. Budget measures to set up an innovation lab for the banking sector. And of course, there has been the setting up of a regulatory sandbox for the banking sector. In terms of new products, of course, let's not forget that the Bank of Mauritius is a regulator. So there's so much that they can do, but they can also foster fintech and innovation among the licensees. And we can see that it is very much clear that most of the licensees of the Bank of Mauritius have somewhere adopted some, come up with some very interesting products in terms of mobile banking apps. I think that you can already see the names. Of course, we've got the setting up of the Mauritius Central Automated Switch, which is the MOCAS. We've come up with a central bank digital currency in Mauritius. Actually, we've not come up yet. There has been a project to come up with the digital currency in Mauritius, and of course, the issue of the guide for sustainable bonds. In terms of processes, the Bank of Mauritius Act was actually amended to cater for fintechs providing peer-to-peer lending facilities to have access to the Mauritius Credit Information Bureau. In fact, the MCIB allows you to have an insight into the credit worthiness of institutions. And of course, by the fact of Bank of Mauritius allowing access to these information also enables fintech activities and fintech organizations to be able to tap into information and come up with new products. I would just like to highlight here that one of the key asks from the operators have been the access to data. So I think this is the first step towards making data accessible to fintech organizations so that they can use this information and come up with new ideas. And of course, the bank is currently working on a centralized eKYC system and a connection to the info highway that we have experts who will be discussing about it shortly. Now, let us look at the non-banking financial sector. So just in terms of giving some clarity, the financial sector in Mauritius is divided into two main segments. You've got the banking sector and the non-banking financial sector. The non-banking financial sector is mostly about the insurance. You've got the global business sector. You've got, for instance, the leasing, factoring. So whatever is not banking falls under the non-banking financial sector, which fall under the aegis of the Financial Services Commission. So at the FSC, there has been lots of initiatives as well in terms of the institution and framework. There's been the setting up of the Innovation Lab for fintech startups, the Regulatory Sandbox License, and of course, the Virtual Asset Act, which was enacted in 2022. The list of products, there's been lots of interesting and innovative products. I just hope that this has been properly disseminated amongst the operators, because these products are not only innovative, but we have tried to the maximum to come up with very contextual conditions. That is to make it very tailor-made for the Mauritian market. So I hope that this can be more disseminated and there's more adoption in the market, local and international market. In terms of processes, the FSC came up with the FSC One platform, which is a digital platform for the submission of application and of course tracking of application online. This has the main objective of boosting the ease of doing business. There is the single window which will soon be launched, which is a one-stop shop for investors and clients who are known to the Commission. So there is the fast tracking of the application. And of course, there's the National Claims Database Portal for insurance operators, which has the objective of making the processing of claims more swift. Now, We've seen what the banking sector has done, what the non-banking sector has done. What is also important is to look at initiatives which has been taken by non-financial actors for the financial innovation. So the Ministry of ICT has came up with its Digital Mauritius 2030 strategic plan, where it has lots of initiatives which are relevant to the fintech as well as financial innovation. Amongst it, we found the Info Highway. There's the Mo Cloud, the Mo Sign, the Mo Pass. Actually, I was discussing with my colleague from the Ministry of ICT, and realized that Mauritius has lots of very interesting features in terms of ICT. For instance, when you look at Mo Sign, it has the capacity of allowing people to digitally sign their documents instead, because very often we tend to trust international, I would say, organizations which come up with such product, whereas when you have something which is locally designed and which also takes into account the requirements of our local institutions, I believe that it is worth trying it. Maybe I'll invite my colleague from the Ministry of ICT later on during the panel discussion to just give you some insight into how to really use such products. You've got Facile.mu. And of course, we've got Mauritius Telecom, which came up with interesting products for the financial innovation by taking into account, I would say, the immediate market need. For instance, Mighty Money, which we've seen has adapted itself to immediate issues that has happened on the market. And of course, the plug-and-play internet offer, which is very relevant to entrepreneurs, to startups, where there is no need for much capital investment. Now we move to the second question of our session, that is, would you agree to use e-wallets rather than cash-based transaction in certain situations? I guess that now you've already got the app, so I would invite you to please select your answer. You have 1 minute. Excellent. I think there's no objection. It's 100%. Okay, we've got 6 persons. I heard the beep. I thought it was the time. Okay. So can we have the page? Thank you. I think that there's no objection to this one. It's 100% agree that they would agree to use e-wallet rather than cash-based transaction in certain situations. So this is very interesting that we've got 100% of agreement on this question. So, which means that somewhere there is a good adoption of financial innovative products, and we're moving away from the purely paper and cash transaction. So for the sake of time, I'm aware that we need to move a bit faster. So maybe we'll go directly to the to pursue on the presentation. We've looked into up to now into where we've been what are the objectives that we've managed to implement so far, but it's also important for us to understand where we want to go. This is the reason for which we're here today, is to understand what are our objectives. So to make the contribution of the financial services sector to at least 26% by 2030, to make Mauritius the fintech hub of Africa, to make Mauritius the preferred platform for sustainable financing in the region, to make Mauritius the preferred jurisdiction for startups in the region, to make Mauritius the preferred platform for investment into mainland Africa, and make Mauritius a sustainable financial center compliant with ESG investment principles, and make Mauritius an educational hub of excellence. Now, when you look at these objectives, obviously you will be telling me that how do we go there? If we look at international initiatives which were taken for the fintech, to move the fintech agenda, in 2018, the IMF came up with a series of policies. There were 12 of them, in order to make developing countries implement the fintech agenda locally. So these were the series of proposals that were made. I can tell you that currently the ministry is actually working on how do we implement each of these items locally. We are already, I would say, we have 1 foot already in, but there are lots of measures that we still need to implement. So IMF actually highlighted 4 key criteria to be able to assess what a fintech hub is and what do we need to implement in order to be a fintech hub. The first one is talent. That is the ability to attract, develop, and retain talent in finance, technology, and entrepreneurship. There should be access to capital. That is, startups need to have access to private investors or other forms of capital. There should be an awareness to foster demand. That is, until and unless people know that there are alternative ways of doing things, they would not have the demand. So consumers need to be educated about financial products. This is where you have demand for more innovative products. And of course, policy and regulation. So what are the challenges and the barriers? Just before we get into that question, I would like to have your views on whether you think Mauritius is currently experiencing a shortage of talent in digital, financial, and entrepreneurial skills, which is inhibiting growth and modernization of the financial sector. I think this will be a quick one. Just for the sake of time, maybe I'll close the poll now. We've got 16 respondents and 75% agree that there is a shortage of digital, financial, and entrepreneurial skill, which is actually inhibiting growth in the financial services sector. And I think that the information that we'll get just afterwards will come to support this, will be aligned with what you've just answered. Thank you. So maybe we'll take it a bit before. In 2019, the Mauritius Africa FinTech Hub did an excellent exercise in terms of mapping the different fintech startups to understand what are the different stages of business that require financing, what are the annual turnover, what has been the fundraising and employment of startups in Mauritius. But the most important part has been what was the ecosystem challenges that have been earmarked. And of course, you will find the same information which actually crop up. The regulatory hurdles to find the skills and talent is a major challenge. And of course, lack of market data and limited funding options, which are constraints to growth. What is quite, I would say, interesting is that you find the ecosystem challenges, the same information which would actually enable you to become a fintech hub. So we already need to understand where we need to put our focus for Mauritius to become a fintech hub. There has been in 2021, in March 2021, a call for views which was conducted by the Ministry of Financial Services and Good Governance in order to understand what are the feedback from the people to develop a fintech strategy for Mauritius. And during this call for views, one key aspect was what are the challenges that were highlighted. There were 36 respondents, and these challenges were same thing: regulatory uncertainty, lack of monitoring by the regulatory sandbox, lack of talent, taxation was an important aspect, limited access to capital and funding, and there was a lack of open API. So let us look at whether we've managed to address these issues. Regulatory uncertainty, we tried to the maximum to come up with the Virtual Asset and Initial Token Offering Act. And so far, even at the level of the FSC, there are new, I would say, rules and regulations which are helping the startups to be able to have more certainty in terms of the framework. Lack of monitoring, we've tried to address that by putting a more structured, I would say, focus, allowing a regulatory sandbox under the BOM and a regulatory sandbox under the FSC. So that once the startup has had 1 year to be able to test their product, they can have in a more easy manner, an access to a license from the regulator. Lack of talent? I don't think so. This is still an issue. Taxation, something to be addressed. Limited access to funding, this is also a major issue which we believe we need to address, and I hope that today we'll be able to come up with innovative ideas to address this concern. Lack of open API. Similarly, we need to find ways to be able to allow startups to have access to data. So what are the recommendations? We need to focus on financial literacy, open banking, establish a fintech consolidated fund to be able to address the issue of funding, to have a digital ID and digital KYC process. 30 seconds and I'm done. So in terms of general recommendations, of course, it is about having policies and laws which can foster initiatives, structures, and guarantee access to information and technology. Of course, we need to look at close collaboration between the ministries and the government. Authorities should consider incentivizing joint investment structures from the demand side to incentivize consumers to drive demand for fintech, and policymakers to join with the private sector to better understand the demand of the sector. For the short-term recommendations, I think that these are quick wins that we can actually implement. Having a digital ID, the setting up of a Mauritius FinTech Laboratory. We're also taking, in terms of discussions that we've had during the technical committee, these are key recommendations that have come up: financing of FinTech angels, promoting education, and of course, facilitating creation. Maybe the last question, if you may wish to answer, can establishing a national FinTech steering committee incentives for small fintech startups, and creating a tailor-made policy for digital nomads or our own diaspora in this sector encourage financial innovation. Okay, I think we've got 100% agree that having a national fintech steering committee can actually help to have the proper fintech startups and creating the tailor-made policy. So we've come up with, there is another question which I would request you to please answer as well. So do you think the use of chatbots improve customer service eventually, helping to automate back office functions? Can we have the figures, please? Okay, so I think 71%, 18% are neutral, and 12 do not agree. So again, I think that those who do not agree, it would be good to discuss later on to understand what are the other information that we can have to better address this issue. Can we please move to the next item? So this is the end of the presentation. I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Elaine Icon. We'll move on to the next speaker, Mr. Vashish Ramkalawan. Mr. Ramkalawan is Secretary General of the Insurers Association of Mauritius. He holds a Bachelor of Engineering from NIT India, an MBA from the University of Hull, UK, and other professional certifications from the World Bank, ICAO, and is a Harvard mentor. Mr. Ramkalawan is the author of the book, The ACE Chief Executive Officer, Run Your Business Like an ACE CEO, and serves as a council member of the University of Mauritius, where he is also the chairperson of the Budget and Infrastructure Committee and a board member of the Employees Welfare Fund. As Secretary General of the Insurers Association of Mauritius, Mr. Ramkalawan is a member of the Financial Services Consultative Council, member of the National Road Safety Council, member of the Building Control Advisory Council, member of the National Health Accounts Committee, member of Finance Sectoral Committee of the Human Resource Development Council, and member of Business Mauritius. In the past, Mr. Ramkalawan has served as a UNDP National Consultant for Mauritius, as the World Bank Country Officer for Mauritius and Seychelles, and as Lead Consultant, Senior Manager and Director of various key institutions with international experience and exposure in UK, Kenya, Tanzania, Seychelles, and Djibouti. Mr. Ramkalawan, the floor is yours.
So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm sure you're not here to look at me, so I would prefer you look at the screen. So I'll be looking at the screen myself. I don't have a piece of paper with me. First of all, on behalf of the Insurers Association of Mauritius, I would like to thank the MRIC for inviting us for this presentation. It's an honor, and I always say it's always a privilege to talk in front of people who know much more of this subject than you. And I can tell you I'm the insurance guy here, and you are the technology people here. So I use this to move on. Huh? Okay. Wow. So technology and innovation in the insurance sector. One thing is that innovation through new technologies is a key driver of change in the financial sector. And this has led to immeasurable efficiency gains, even though these changes can initially be accompanied by uncertainty and doubt. This is strongly believed at the level of the insurance sector that yes, it's very important, technology is a key driver, and we know that we are no exception to such developments, with possibilities of new methods of service provision, as well as greater opportunities for data collection, fraud detection, and that can lead to better risk identification and mitigation measures. In fact, these are very, very important. If you look at the whole value chain of the insurance sector, these are very important. So Inshotek is the term being used to describe the new technologies with the potential to bring innovation to the insurance sector and impact the regulatory practices of insurance market. Okay, sorry. So going forward, so how Inshotek is taking the insurance industry to new levels. So the insurance industry has always been a complicated but firmly rooted environment. You know, if you go, even yourself, you're used, you know, when you buy your motor insurance, the way the risk is calculated, the way your premiums are calculated, the underwriting that goes, it's always believed to be something complicated and firmly rooted. And this is very important, but advancement in technology have collided with customer needs, creating systemic challenges for the insurance industry. For example, the customer value with mobile solutions. At the level of the associations, we always say to our members, don't embrace technology just because technology is there. What you have to do is you have to be customer-centric. And technology has to be there to help you in providing that centricity, in providing the services that your customers need. And that is very important. So compelled by the success of fintech and insurtech, here we're talking around the world, the insurance industry is experiencing a systematic change in business operations. This is happening throughout the world. In fact, you even have international initiatives being taken by huge reinsurance and insurance companies around the world. They're collaborating. It's a huge collaboration initiatives. From big insurers from the US, from Europe, from Asia and all. And this is very important. So the urgency for insurers to offer digital products is moving faster than what was probably originally anticipated, especially with COVID coming in, with the way things have changed in the past years. So the needs are becoming more and more, and we have to change faster than what we were thinking of. So we are digitalizing, we are embracing digitization. This is something I can assure you, and this is happening in Mauritius as well. Insurers are viewing this as an opportunity to provide value in this increasingly digitized financial ecosystem. So it's not a cost issue, it's not a challenge. We look at this as an opportunity because it will give the opportunity to look at the products, to be more flexible, to provide even more products. And we are happy that you are thinking about all that. Yesterday somebody was saying, if you digitize, you embrace technology, you do all that, you have to think of cybersecurity, you have to think of all that. But at the end of the day, whatever you think, whatever you do, you need to protect it, isn't it? So it's good business for us. Thank you very much for doing all that. So the next thing is advantages of Inshotek is that enrich connectivity through the use of AI. I'm not a technology person, I'm not going to talk about AI, but this is what we believe. Like someone said yesterday, it's like the use of the internet. If you believe the internet is helping you, you're using it, and that's how we're looking at it. So enrich connectivity, it gives us the possibility of personalizing product offerings, digitized inventory of possessions data, exceptional digital customer experience, and end-to-end automation, but this is happening in the world, okay? And obviously I'm going to talk about Mauritius a bit later. So Inshotek have many advantages that insurance companies can and should leverage. This is a strong belief. So we invite you to come with your solutions, to come with your ideas, and this is very important for us. So customer experience, something very important, enhancing. I wanted to put emphasis on this. Insurers have gained an understanding of the demand for a mobile-first experience. Until the COVID-19 pandemic and subsequent lockdowns, mobile applications were seen as a nice-to-have addition to electronic transaction. It's nice to have. You have it on your mobile. You're happy. You tell your friends, I have this. I'm having this app and all. But the changing demands of the consumer in a post-COVID world, as well as advancement in technology, is forcing financial and insurance companies to adopt a mobile-first view of features and development. And this is happening. So another thing which is very important is something we have to talk about, is the young clientele. In fact, if you look at this picture, you will see there are 3 different clientele in terms of age group here. And you would see the one sitting on the laptop, having the phone with a different profile, and the young one on the mobile, the style is very different and everything. But the younger demographics are far more receptive to technological advancement than their older counterparts. And in fact, this is very interesting for us because, we always say in the insurance world, the younger you embrace insurance, the better it is for us. And the better it is for you as well, because you're going to pay less. So if you take a life insurance, the younger you embrace the insurance, the less is the premium, you're protected, and everything goes smoother for you. And it's good for us because you're a long-term client to us. Because you take a life insurance, obviously you'll be taking it for a long period of your life. The same thing happened in general insurance, because when you embark, like motor insurance, the fact that it is mandatory in Mauritius, obviously, if you start driving your car at a very young age, you will keep driving the car, I'm sure. You're not going to drop that car, even though I'm sure you'll be using a little bit of the metro as well. So you're not going to, so that clientele is important for us, because this is what is going to bring a certain sustainability into it. So how that clientele is behaving, what are they looking for, what the needs is the centricity that we want to focus on. And younger age groups have been found to value remote transactions, convenience, and as little direct interaction with institutions as possible. Okay, but I was speaking into another conference before, and I was telling, but we have to be very careful, because for us it's a hybrid case. A lot of people came to me and said, with COVID now, insurance companies have to, embrace technology and talk to your customers more remotely. I said, this is fine, but one thing that I realized during COVID is that people were very, very focused on the clauses that were written in their insurance contract. You might be willing to talk to someone. You might be willing to make a claim on the platform, on technology, but the clauses that are when we were receiving calls, when everybody was calling insurance companies, what were they asking? Am I covered? That was where the worry was. Am I covered? And I'm sure there is a demand. People want to know more about the insurance contract. People want to know more about what is covered, what is not covered, how this is innovating, and the people element is very important. Then there was a second thing that everybody told me. You know, insurance product has to embrace technology and, cover more, become more. People are looking for more coverage. I said, yes, that's true. But people are also losing money and asking for the coverage to be shrinked. And that is also happening. So the hybrid case, we have to be very careful because, a lot of companies or a lot of people who may have, for example, a cover, which covers so much things, let's say, and then they will come and say, this is enough for me. I want to maintain my cover. Probably I won't have this because, at the end of the day, you have to look at your pocket. At the same time, you want the ability to cover more risk. And hopefully technology will bring more and more solutions to us to be more flexible. And that is very important. So insurers can gain loyalty from younger policyholders by providing mobile solutions and optimizing with Inshotek. This is what we believe in because this is what you've been telling us. Okay? And getting young people to purchase your insurance product is so important for business because they could renew each year and for the foreseeable future. And that is what is interesting. We want that long-term clientele, and the young clientele is what brings that to us. And millennials and the younger generation X customers favor mobile channels for financial transactions. We've seen that. And the good thing is that the banking sector have embraced this technology. There's a lot happening on mobile, on financial transactions, etc. And obviously, we have benefited from all that. And this is something which is true. And so, having said that, it's important for us also to look at the customer pain points. What's your pain point? And that is very important. And how do we decrease that? Hopefully, technology will bring solution. So, Inshotek addresses and eliminates the most pressing pain points customers have with insurance companies. There's a wrong word there, can't. In fact, to put it simply, with digitization, customers want to get advice, information, or make claims at any time. You would have been happy if when you knock your car at any time on the road, you can make your claim, you can inform your insurance companies. You would have been happy that you're getting somebody into a clinic and you can obviously check everything that is being covered. And all these things that can be offered to you at any time obviously is important. And insurers can provide risk-free underwriting. This is what is important because at the end of the day, we are taking the risk. We have to ensure that the underwriting is done correctly because if it's not done correctly, you yourself will not pay the right premium. And also on-the-spot purchasing, activation, and claims processing. I'm trying to go as fast as possible. So the ambitious future, I always say the ambitious future, but before we look at the ambitious future, first let's look at the evolution of the insurance industry. The Middle Ages, member-funded Guild Coffers Act as both life and property insurance for craft. So it was more, like members putting their money together to protect themselves, trying to collaborate among themselves so that if there is something that happened to one, at least the impact is not felt that much. It all started with people collaborating as much as possible. Moving to the 17th century, where personal insurance, including life policies, fire insurance, and property insurance, begin their rise in the wake of Great Fire of London in 1666. And also in the 17th century, underwriting emerges as an innovation in the shipping industry used to insure voyages to the newly discovered Americas. So people wanted to go and discover America. America was discovered, let's go and visit it. And Lloyd's of London, which is very famous today, you all know the Lloyd's of London, originally a coffee house, becomes a prominent meeting place for merchants and eventually underwriters. And the explosion of global trade in the 20th century results in a corresponding expansion in the insurance trade and the rise of multinational insurance providers. And this is how it is today. So now, going on the future, the ambitious future, so the insurance industry is now undergoing a shift as fintech makes its impact felt at every level of global business. Insurers are grappling with ways to stay current and adapt to new disruptive technology. And this is very important because, you know, when you're an insurer, you have your underwriting processes. If you look at the whole value chain, like I say, things are deep-rooted. Then you say, I want to embrace technology. There are all these things coming. How do you do it? Do you disrupt? So what you are doing, and you know, you have people coming to you every year, or do you put something aside and try and accelerate? How do you involve all your people in? I'm sure you have the solutions to that. And what we were told, and this is what others told us, is that yes, there are three major ways that the insurance industry is embracing technology. Internet of Things, how technology combined with connected devices and sensors is able to collate large quantities of data for insurers. The next thing we were told is blockchain, the immutable, secure and auditable. This has the potential to offer a host of benefits to insurance providers and customers alike. And also artificial intelligence, AI solutions offer insurance providers the opportunity to improve efficiency through process automation, data analysis, and machine learning. So very quickly, looking at Internet of Things, so how is it helping insurers around the world? Number one, risk determination. So when you use data insights from sensors that are now commonplace in cars, insurers are able to determine risk more accurately through driver behavior. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of these products available for your insurance companies today in Mauritius. And this is very important because, you know, when you look at road safety, driver behavior is one of the biggest elements of accident in terms of risk. And then you have the infrastructure and you also have the users of the road, etc. And the cars, obviously. So, but the drivers, 65% of accident would happen because of driver behaviors. And this is very important. So if these data with sensors and all providers inside, this will help us to mitigate, to know, and also to provide better products to you. Then safety and active prevention. So monitoring software in cars and mobile phones can detect accidents and quickly dispatch emergency services. This is very important. So there is an accident, we can detect it. Emergency services can be dispatched. So sensors in home devices such as geysers detect leaks, avoiding expensive claims. So with those technology that you are bringing to us, obviously this is how we are looking at it and we are believing will change the way we do business. So it helps in the whole process. And usage-based pricing, we are not there yet in Mauritius, but you would have been happy if today you are paying for your cars based on the usage. And all these things coming in, but honestly, we are not there yet in Mauritius. So the use of sensors in different environments provides data that can enable more individual risk calculation, thus more granular pricing models. And customers who use smart devices are able to offer more complete risk profile, potentially lowering the product cost. So blockchain, security, from a security perspective, the immutability of the blockchain ledger provides a high level of security that's highly resistant to tampering by malicious parties. The element of transparency, which is very important. One of blockchain's key strength is its transparency. Anyone with access can view the information, knowing that the decentralized system has verified the data's accuracy. And very importantly, this is happening a lot, even in Mauritius, is fraud detection. And we are always making an appeal for things to be done on that end. So duplicate claims can easily be spotted on the blockchain. And smart contracts, by automating contracts on the blockchain, insurers can increase operational efficiency with customers enjoy the benefits of quicker resolution process. And that also happened when the insurer is put on the customer side with reinsurance sitting on the other end. So looking at AI, so obviously automation, robotic process automation systems allow insurers to automate formally manual process and reduce mistakes, particularly in activities involving data collection and entry. You have the fraud detection, which is very important. Again, at this end is more in terms of feeding accurate, deep data at sufficient volumes with machine learning algorithms can help insurers more quickly and effectively identifying potential fraud. Risk calculation with connected devices and data collected from diverse sources, including social media, AI systems can offer more accurate risk assessment. And everything boils down to customer satisfaction, where AI solutions offer a number of ways to improve customer satisfaction and retention. Chatbots can quickly process customer requests through websites or apps, while RPA can be used to process claims efficiently. So moving ahead, so this is, the first line is something we hear many times. Insurance is boring. You might hear that from people who don't know better. But the ones who are paying attention understand that some of the most interesting work in technology is taking place in insurance. Okay? And we strongly believe into that, and we are telling you this. So, mind you, there's a lot of things that I would want to tell you when we come to the Mauritian context. You know, the insurance industry has grown in parallel with the economy. We are the biggest investors in the assets of this country. Each time there's been a major leap in technology, the industry has responded with new products, new methods of distributions, and new ways to evaluate risk. We at another inflection point, we know, but for us, the cycle is simply repeating itself. Yes, we have arguably seen more technological innovation in the past decade than in 5 decades that preceded it. But if you look at it from a cycle, for us, this cycle is repeating itself. The onus lies on us to identify the most relevant technology and how best to apply it to our operations. However, if insurers turn to Inshotek for the wrong reasons or without a clear, sustainable plan to extract value, they'll fail. And this is very important. That's the key message of the Insurers Association to its members. So the insurance context in Mauritius, you see the beautiful Mauritius where we show a lot of pieces being brought together, and you see the world. So, insurance in itself is a global market. Because we are connected with reinsurance companies. We partner with reinsurance companies. We are able in Mauritius to insure the biggest risk that you have through our network of reinsurance, through how the insurance world works. It's not an issue of people tell me cybersecurity or complex technology. Yes, we are able to do that. So at the end, as your service provider, as your risk taker, we are able to do that because insurance is connected to the world. The way the insurance function is like that. So I always say a common misunderstanding of digital transformation is the focus on technology. And this is where we don't want to make that mistake. And how it will have an impact on the future. Digital transformation is much more than just technology. It's all about customer centricity, understanding customers and providing customized products and experience that keep them around. I tell that to people. Yes, you will come and tell me that you put sensors in your cars, you put all these things, but we have 200,000 people that insure their cars on third-party basis. We've got so many people riding motorcycles in this country. We have to insure them. We have to give them the products. We want to do all that. And obviously the way we embrace technology has to fit it for the best of each and everybody. We believe that we believe that technology like Inshotek will support this approach, but there also has to be a change in mindset. And that change in mindset should be holistic. Okay, I will speak of that probably a little bit later. Insurance companies in Mauritius do understand this new imperative and are positioning themselves as partners to their customers. The insurance industry in Mauritius is highly competitive, and that is to the advantage of people because high competition is a way of self-regulation, and that is very important. And insurance companies are very customer-centric. They are all implementing technologies not because these are available, but in order to meet customer needs and add value to the customer experience. We invite you to come with your technologies, demonstrate how this is adding value, and we are willing to embrace it, discuss it with the authorities who are also present here, and see how we can bring the best solutions to it. It has started with the insurance claims database, and it's not the end of it. We hope it's just the beginning of it. The insurance business has always been a people business, where agents and brokers are used as intermediaries, and that will continue. However, insurers are becoming aware that they need to know their customers more holistically and be able to meet their expectations. They are all investing heavily in digitalization, and that will help them gather the relevant data and stay in direct contact with customers. Physical and digital channels are being completely integrated to give customers omni-channel 24/7 access. Insurers are taking advantages of Inshotek and customer data to offer unique customer experiences and individualized products. So, the industry challenges. The industry challenges, one obviously is the market size. Last one. Obviously is the market size, because, you know, when you have a sizable market like that, even if the insurance is itself a global world, but it's a global world to bring solutions. But in terms of customer base, the market size remains relevant. I hope we all understand that. And, you know, in a market size like this, there is so much we can do. Because you need data in order to embrace certain things. And in some cases, you know, just to let you know that at the beginning, we wanted to do the claims database in-house. But then, will it be voluntary? Will it be mandatory? How much data? What data protection says? All that comes in. Then you have the industry structure. J'ai toujours dit, l'île Maurice, un petit pays à forte dominance. And this is true. This is the industry structure that we all respect. But the beauty about it is that we are able to cater solutions for each and every one. And that is what is important. Then comes the regulatory framework and data protection. To give you an example, we wanted at one point in time to do the claims database to improve recovery and etc. So the first thing that we said is that obviously when you look at the regulatory framework, you put data protection, you put everything. Then I was told, you know, if you do that, you become the data controller and you don't have a direct consent with the data subject, so you can't do it. Luckily, with the size of the country, we managed to get it as a national product. The government is implementing it because they've seen the good usage and importance of it. The FSC took the initiatives and they have been very ambitious, and in fact they are developing something which is far much better. We need to accept that, and we are ambitious. We want to showcase this tomorrow in the whole world. And to let you know. So all these things when it comes. Now people are saying one thing. Sandbox licenses, regulatory and all these things. You would see a lot has happened, which we have embraced ourselves when it comes to, for example, if you look at the banking sector, where you would find a lot of payment systems being used. But why is it happening that way? Because when you think of payment system, who are your customers? It's the consumers. So obviously, if the consumers will embrace it, it will be. So when it comes to the end, it's much easier to embrace technology. But if you look at the whole value chain, if we want to benefit from the underwriting, from the whole side, so what will happen is your consumer becomes institutional. And obviously you are faced with the limitation of the market size and the number of institutions that you have. Now let's say you become somebody who invests in the super technology. What will you want? To become an insurer yourself? To partner with an insurer? Will that insurer? So it's a lot of things have to be relooked at. And at the end of the day, even whatever we do, there is consumer protection lying downwards. There's other rules like capital requirements lying downwards. So all that has to be made in such a way that it becomes conducive, that we can all work together and we can all embrace it together. Luckily, there is that push happening and we are moving in the right direction, but the challenges remain these four. There is a fifth challenge, which obviously is an understanding of the people about it. But I didn't put it as a challenge. We've mentioned financial literacy because I believe it's always our pleasure to go and talk to the people. So it's not a challenge, it's a pleasure. Okay? So I've put only four. I haven't put the financial literacy as a challenge because it's a pleasure. We are always here, deep-rooted, but also down-rooted to come to the people because we are here to give you solutions. So some company takeaway. There are many ways to win, but you have to choose a clear path forward. Until and unless you have your directions clearly laid out, okay, you are going to fail. There are new sources of value, for example, preventive and restorative services. You know, at one point in time, people were looking at insurance. What is it? You pay a premium. When the risk happens, the problem happens, then you get the service. But we are looking at it broader in terms of prevention, restorative, and thanks to technology and data, this is being possible today. The pandemic has accelerated the pace of change, but that does not mean it has changed the deep roots and the needs. That we have to be very careful. We have to understand the needs, though the pace of change is going faster. What used to be a sign of success may not be anymore. For example, in previous years, what you would think is a successful insurance company. Maybe you would look at the size of the company. And in the future, maybe you would look at the embracement of technology of that company. So what was probably a sign of success could be changing. Speed matters more than ever. And this is a fact, but it's always been known that speed is a key objective of operations, whichever operations you do, and it doesn't change for us. Technology and innovation can help insurers deliver these benefits to customers. So we make an appeal to you to bring all that to us. Thank you very much. But before ending, there's only one thing I would like to say is that there is a conference on Inshotek happening, I think, on the first week of May. But look at what the conference says. The topic of the conference is something that hit me a lot because I strongly, personally believe in that. Tech when needed, human when wanted. With that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you for your attention. It's been a huge pleasure.
Thank you very much, Mr. Amkelawan, for a very interesting presentation. I would now like to invite all of you for a tea break in the lobby just outside. And we're running a little bit over time, so I would like to ask you, if possible, have your snacks. If you can take your cup of tea or coffee and please come back here so that we can resume, let's say, within 10 minutes. Thank you. Welcome again, everyone. I would like to ask if there's anyone outside, please feel free to take your cup and come back again. We'll start the panel session in a few minutes. So all panel members, if you could please come on stage. Take your seat, please, on stage. I would also like to make a request. If there's anyone who still has some issues with the Eventee app, please raise your hand. We have a team here who can come and help you.
Ici, 1, 2, 3. Ici, 1, 2, 3.
Ouais, non, pauvre.
Un petit qui là-haut.
Hein?
Ici, tous les mots. Ici.
Au point, là.
I'll take the seat.
Ici, 1, 2, 3.
Ladies and gentlemen, can you hear me?
Testing, testing.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the panel discussion that we'll be having today on financial innovation. As you can see, there is, we have a very, I would say, substantial list of panelists today, experts in their respective fields. Like we mentioned during the presentation this morning, the idea is that we've looked at what we've done locally, where we want to go, and this session will be mostly about what we need to do. Of course, given that there are several topics and several expertise, it would be good as well to understand what they've done in their particular field as well. So let me first start by introducing the different panelists, because we've got such I would say, a big wealth of experts on our panel. So we have Mrs. Nusrat Baghelou, who is the Executive Chairperson of Nexus Global Financial Services Limited. Mrs. Baghelou has the Nexus Global Financial Services Limited is a boutique management company. She has over 20 years of experience in corporate services. She's a business leader with recognized experience in advising multinationals, funds, family office, and individual entrepreneurs. We have Mr. Vinod Basawa. Mr. Vinod Basawa is currently the COO of Mauritius Finance. Previously, he served the Association of Trust and Management Companies as CEO for 2 years. He is an ethical financial professional, having a FCCA, MBA, and Diploma in Corporate Finance, with over 25 years of experience working at senior management level of recognized organizations. We have Mr. Rajnish Awabai, who needs no introduction in the ICT field. Mr. Awabai is the Chief Technical Officer of Ministry of Information Technology, Communication and Innovation, with more than 25 years of experience in the ICT sector. Next to me is Mrs. Tilotama Gobinjari, who is Assistant Director of Payment Systems and Digital Currency and FinTech and Digital Innovation Division at the Bank of Mauritius, with more than 40 years of experience in central banking and payment system. Next, we have Naushad Kaden. Naushad is Director of Studies at the Financial Services Institute. I have had the opportunity to work a lot with Naushad when he was at the Financial Services Commission. He's got more than 10 years of experience in the financial services sector. And today he's working with the Financial Services Institute. We have Mr. Bhavish Jagannath, who is a senior lecturer at the University of Mauritius. Mr. Jagannath has more than 20 years of experience in global financial services, focusing on inclusion, diversity, and innovation. Dr. Jagannath has a PhD in economics and finance with specialization in international taxation and foreign direct investment. There's Mr. Jamshid Kadaro. Mr. Jamshid Kadaro is the Senior Manager at Financial Services Commission. He holds the position of Senior Manager at the Regulator for Non-Banking Financial Services sector, and is currently acting as Head of FinTech Authorization and Supervision Cluster. And lastly, but not the least important person in terms of FinTech, is Mr. Mikhail Zimansky, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Mauritius Africa FinTech Hub. He was in the teaching profession. I must say I was surprised to learn this. And before being headhunted to join one of the leading incubators in South Africa, Mikhail is today the CEO of Mauritius Africa FinTech Hub since 2018 to position the country as a global FinTech hub for Africa. So as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, we have experts in this field. And without much ado, let me start with a question to the regulator of the banking sector, Mrs. Jury. In fact, we've seen this morning that the banking sector has been among the first sector to implement financial innovation. So as the regulator, what measures the Bank of Mauritius has initiated over the past 5 years to foster financial innovation? Of course, we've seen a few this morning, but what can you tell us a bit more and the challenges that you have encountered as the regulator?
Thank you, Lovina, and good morning to all of you. We earlier listened to the very interesting expose made by Mr. Ramkelawan on Inshotek. And at the end, he mentioned payments. You know, payment is just like we would say in Creole, pomdamu kyal da tulasos. When we talk of digitization, we cannot digitize services without a digital payment system. And this, the Bank of Mauritius realized it 2 decades back. I think 5 years would be too short for me. I'd like to go back to 2 decades just to so that you can have an overview of what has been done. So, as you rightly mentioned earlier, Dovina, invention of ATM was groundbreaking in its time. But with time, we can see the limitation of cash, and the COVID-19 pandemic demonstrated these limitations clearly to all of us. So in 2000, the Bank of Mauritius implemented a real-time gross payment settlement system, MAX. I'm sure all of you must have heard of MAX. It is an interbank payment system. And this payment system allowed payments electronically between banks and facilitated payments for consumers also. Previously, I myself, I remember when I was at the bank, sometimes the Bank of Mauritius would issue bonds and you will see people carrying money in porte vacua and coming for investment. So we had to do something to alleviate such painful actions that people had to take. So that was one of the main development that the bank made at that time. And you won't believe it, at that time itself, we have the Mauritius Network Services that leverage on this system to implement the contributions network project. And I'm sure all corporates know what I'm talking about because this facilitates payment of your taxes and social contributions without your having to displace yourself physically to your banks to do all that. And in parallel, many banks, they came up with internet banking facilities. So this alleviated your payment transactions. And then in 2013, the Bank of Mauritius issued a guideline on mobile banking. And with the issue of this guideline, we saw the coming up of mobile apps. We had Juice by the MCB, followed by apps of other banks. We had Orange Money and we had MTEL. So this brought about a change in the habits of consumers for retail payments. But unfortunately, these schemes at that time were operating in a silo model and it did not have the effectiveness that we expected. So in 2019, the Bank of Mauritius launched a national payment switch. So this switch has 2 components. It has a card payment system to route domestic payments. And then it has a second component, an instant payment system. So as its name would indicate, it completes payment in near real time. And this platform has enabled interoperability of payments made through mobile devices and e-commerce. And I believe this is a platform that will support digitization of payments and at the same time of services. And slowly we have seen an uptake of mobile payments in Mauritius, especially during the COVID pandemic. And we see that people have got used to this payment mode now. And last year we saw an upsurge in the use of this payment mode. And at the same time, this platform has provided opportunities for fintech. And prior to the launch of this platform, the National Payment Systems Act was enacted. This act is a comprehensive piece of legislation that has provided a level playing field for non-bank payment operators also. Because as you are all aware, previously our banking system was dominated by banks. But this act changed the arena, the barriers have been lowered, and now non-bank operators also can come in the payment space. We already have Mighty Money. We have other operators that are working on their systems, and we have quite a number of applications for payment service provider license that are being processed at our level. And interestingly, we have also seen foreign operators interested in our jurisdiction. And I believe this would provide opportunities for our fintech companies in Mauritius, because you can leverage on this platform to provide technology services or other types of services. And one important thing that I'd like to mention here, previously central bank money was available for settlement to banks only. But as from 2019, with the advent of MOCAS, now even non-bank operators can hold accounts on Max for settlement. And this is something that is not very common in many countries. As Davina mentioned earlier, the systems that are operated by the Bank of Mauritius also support services provided by non-bank financial operators. She mentioned MCIB earlier, and for peer-to-peer lending, for crowdfunding, FSC has put it as one of the conditions in its regulation that MCIB should be consulted. There's a two-pronged advantage to this. First of all, operators can carry out a more informed creditworthiness assessment on applicants for credit and in some way protect lenders. And secondly, it also helps, I would say curbing, but maybe controlling over-indebtedness among the population. As you know, over-indebtedness has detrimental effects on families. So somewhere as a regulator, be it the FSC or the Bank of Mauritius, we have a duty to see to what extent over-indebtedness can be limited. And I'd like here to mention a few future projects that the bank has. You may be aware that the Banking Act was amended to make provision for licensing of digital banks. And recently, the bank has issued a guideline to give effect to the provisions of the Banking Act and to set up the regulatory and supervisory framework for operation of digital banks in Mauritius. So this also may be an opportunity for fintechs. And we have all noted that there is a need for digital identification, remote onboarding of customers, and this was highlighted during the pandemic. Many people wanted to have access to credit, but unfortunately it was not possible for them because it was not possible to remote customers remotely. So the Bank of Mauritius is working in collaboration with the Ministry of ICT to set up a system to facilitate remote onboarding of customers. And we will be coming up with a framework. And after that, the bank will issue a guideline for digital onboarding of customers. Well, technology has no doubt the capacity to drive innovation, but then it should be backed by a strong legal framework. And this the bank did by enacting the NPS Act. Capital expenditure is one of the main challenges that is being faced by startups. with the availability of cloud services, I'm sure many startups are thinking about making use of these services, but without a proper legal framework to operationalize such facilities, the system will be exposed to more cybersecurity, breach of data privacy, amongst others. And it is important that we regulate the users of such facilities. So the Bank of Mauritius will be shortly issuing guidelines on use of cloud and cybersecurity. The Bank of Mauritius is very much aware of the consequences that climate change and environmental degradation can have on our financial system. And the bank issued a guide for the issue of sustainable bonds in Mauritius and has set up a climate change center. And at the same time issued a guideline on climate-related and environmental and financial risk management. And the bank itself is working on reducing its carbon footprint. So these are the projects that are in the pipeline. And at the same time, I'd like to mention that if we want to be a regional hub in fintech, it will be important for us to have facilities for cross-border payments. Today, cross-border payments are very slow, expensive. So we are working together with other jurisdictions and regional blocks to find a way how cross-border payments can gain in speed and are made at a lower cost. So this is what I had to say.
Thank you, Mrs. Jerry. I think the future looks very promising when we hear exactly what the Bank of Mauritius has actually put into action in terms of financial innovation. And what is very interesting is the fact that, like we've seen, is it's not only about bringing together finance and technology, but it's other ways of looking at financial instruments. And on this aspect, I would like to turn myself to the Financial Services Commission, Jamshid, from the FSC, to actually understand a bit more that there was a fintech report which was actually mandated in 2018 to boost fintech products for our jurisdiction. So I would like to understand a bit more, Jamshid, what have been the products that were introduced following this fintech report and its assimilation so far? And at the same time, what we've discussed about financial innovation, what have been the actions taken by the FSC to innovate its financial products?
Hi, good morning to everyone, and thanks to everyone for this opportunity to represent our Commission on this panel and to provide you with some of my personal insights, which may not necessarily bind my organization. So before starting my intervention, this was the normal caveat that I would like to place on records. So coming back to your question, and I think that as stressed by our banking regulator, our counterpart for the banking sector, the Bank of Mauritius, we also at the level of the FSC, we place fintech very prominently in terms of the development and diversification agenda. So to speak, just to tell you, we do not operate as a regulator in terms of silo, rather than we have a constant and regular consultation with all our stakeholders, starting from the parent ministry, different ministries, our Mauritius Finance, and all the industry associations, including Mr. Ramkelawan, who this morning represented insurance industry. So we do not view fintech development as in isolation. So whatever action, be it in terms of policy, strategies, operational targets, so we look at it in deep consultation with all our stakeholders. Having said that, I would like to, just for highlighting an example in terms of how we proceed with the implementation side, we have set up governance structures whereby we have different subcommittees, technical committees with together with the Bank of Mauritius, Mauritius Finance and ministries and several other organizations, including Mauritius Africa FinTech Hub, with whom we have had opportunity to host and to accompany them with the organization of regulatory roundtables for fintech developments. So this is a bit giving you the outlook in terms of our strategic dimension with which FSA is operating. So I think we have touched upon a lot on the local realities, how fintech is being talked about, what are the challenges you have beautifully summarized. I would like also to add, as regulator, we also form part of several international organizations such as IOSCO, IIS, even we are part of the Global Financial Innovation Network, GFIN, and our mandate as regulator representing Mauritius in those forums is like we do all our level best to really pitch Mauritius as a reputable jurisdiction with a clear vision where we want to go, that is to become a regional fintech hub for Africa. So this was my entrance comments. Coming back to your questions, just to enumerate, there have been a lot of initiatives, a lot of actions taken, lots of project realizations. We have issued guidance note which recognized digital assets for investment purposes by specific categories of funds or investors, especially expert fund and sophisticated investors. So we have taken into account the market dynamics and also what the industry demands. So these guidance notes were issued, if I'm not mistaken, as early as 2018. And since then, we have constantly been reaching out with the industry stakeholders. And I can tell you, as of today, we are actually considering a few cases whereby funds are really and concretely going forward admitting digital assets in terms of their investment mixtures. So this was an emanation of the FinTech report, which you have mentioned. This FinTech report was a culmination of the high-level steering committee, which comprised of two lords from the House of Lords of UK, Professor Meghnad Desai and another lords. And we also had the collaboration insights from top caliber professionals, including Mr. Rajesh Ramlol, who is now Solicitor General and member of the FSA, and a few other high caliber professionals. So this report has led and recommended to government for the implementation or introduction of new products. So this is where we have seen a traction in the digital asset space. We have furthermore, based on the conclusions of this report, we issued a licensing framework for custodization of digital assets. Subsequently, we have moved on and also added securities token offerings and platforms who would be dealing with STOs. So the guidelines are published by the FSA. And additionally, I would like to add, in the interest of time, I know we are running scarce of time, we have also taken good care to support the ministry, the government in the development of wealth tech products. And as many of you would know, we have already implemented rules catering for robotic advisory services. And as of today, we have already received interest. One application is underway, which is being assessed at this point in time. So to end, I would say we have also contributed in the realization of the Virtual Asset and Initial Token Services Act, whereby myself, in my humble capacity, I had acted as co-chair together with the SLO and under the aegis of our ministry. I think this is going to be a good realization, and if successfully tapped by all stakeholders, including regulators, I think this could be a game changer for the fintech industry going forward. So just to end, I want, since you mentioned also in your presentation the pillars, the imperatives, as well as the new opportunities, in my humble opinion, I think we have done quite a bit some work in the space of Islamic finance, but we still yet have to do more in this space. And concerning ethical and ESG finance as well, I think we are well on track, and I think with the constant collaboration of all parties, we can reach higher shores in that dimension. And last but not least, I think in terms of my insights, I believe that Mauritius stands to gain if we can develop a roadmap for diaspora finance. Some countries are doing it. I think the policymakers, legislators could sit together and really forge a way forward. That's all from my side. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Jamshid. I think in terms of innovative products, both regulators, be it the Bank of Mauritius and the FSC, have somewhat worked a lot to bring about innovative products. However, like we mentioned earlier, is that financial innovation is not only about bringing forward new financial products, but it's a whole ecosystem that we need to change. And talking of ecosystem, one thing which is important is the process. So I would like to ask Rajneesh from the Ministry of ICT that in terms of process, this morning when we did a poll on understanding how important digital KYC and CDD procedures is as a sine qua non in embracing, I would say, fintech, how far do you believe that, are you aligned with the poll that we received? Because 83% actually believed that digital KYC and CDD is important, is mandatory when we are embracing fintech. So what is your take on that, Rajesh?
Thank you, Davina. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to be present on the panel. I think it's interesting that among so many financial people, the ICT also gets to have a say. I think this is interesting. I think you're right, and this is what has come out from the poll. People believe that for digital KYC and also for CDD, we need to use data and we need to use technology. I think this is very much clear. In fact, if you look at what we're doing in government, and I'm going to now trespass financial services and go into normal business of government. The moment that we have implemented the InfoHi, which is a data exchange platform of government, and we are able now to provide facilities for validating data of citizens, and whether it's name, the address, the gender, the birth and all, we are able to step in very fast and give services fast. And I could just give you the example of the MRA. The MRA, when you do tax returns, when you fill in, you give your name, you give the name of your spouse and all, this is validated on the fly. Because this is validated on the fly and they can give you the feedback, they are able now to move into the next step, because once you file in, if ever there is a return, meaning there's a refund to be done, they had to take time and check and go into the books and look at it here and there. Now it's already validated, it's just the amounts that they have to check, and that also is automated. They're able to speed up the refund process. So if we have correct data about people, we can change the way we give services. And this is, I think this is what I've been taking from this morning. Speed is key to financial services. So if ever you step into this, you are going to change the whole game. And here, the Bank of Mauritius has done a major step forward in the sense that is about 3 weeks back, the Bank of Mauritius signed an MOU with our ministry together with the Civil Status Division so that we are able now to give access to the citizen data for validation and everything. Now, this is a very important milestone because once this is passed, Bank of Mauritius now will go into the step of building the solution on their side, because what we do is we give you access, but it's a proxy service that will be built by Bank of Mauritius, and then it's the banks at the back, commercial banks, even other parties regulated by the Bank of Mauritius will get access. So we are the dawn of major change, I believe, in the fintech industry. Onboarding of customers will become so easy. Online application for loans can happen. In fact, I believe once we open up, and this is, I believe, a question of a few months down the road, we will see a lot of innovative measures that will come in. And the digital banking, we were talking about digital banks, online banks. Yes, digital banks can come in, but the commercial banks that have presence today, they will also be able to step into that new world. I think this is a key change that is happening. There's another thing I think, if you give me the opportunity to touch upon. Info Highway is a way of getting access to data where you're getting through regulators, you're calling on the database of government, and you're coming back. But there's another way, and I think this is something that parties have to think about, the MoCloud. In fact, the ministry has come up with a MoCloud, which is like a Dropbox for each citizen of this country. And each citizen of this country has access. If he opens his account, he has access to his birth certificate, even his marriage certificate online. We're soon going to add the proof of address. Right? The CEB, we're working with them. It's just a question of they say yes, and we can put it on. We're also working with the traffic branch of the police force to give the driving license online. Already built, it's a question of going yes, and it's up to them to say yes. It will be available on the platform. So once these, and they carry digital certificates with them, and it's the organization which has issued it. If it's a birth certificate, it is signed by the Civil Status Division. So you have proof and trust that this comes from a trusted organization, not from the Ministry of IT, not from myself, not from anybody else. If this is the case, and we have also added the sharing facility, online sharing. So whenever you have an application, online application, the citizen, the customer can give consent. So he himself approves the sharing of that document with the organization. You can imagine there's no banks, Bank of Mauritius, no commercial, no intermediary. You change the game completely. And you can move into. The only thing maybe it's with the Bank of Mauritius to look at the guidelines so that they take those documents and add it in their guidelines for KYC, right? Because it's going to be straight from the citizen itself. So I think we are very much at the start of a new world. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Rajesh, I think it's really a new wave of change which is coming in the way of fintech and of the financial world as a whole. Talking of change, I think that in December last year, it was a groundbreaking law which was enacted because we've been amongst the first countries in the world to come up with a virtual asset and initial token offering act. And of course, it was, whilst we've been in the limelight for being on the FATF, it has also brought Mauritius in the limelight at the same time for being the first country to come up with such an innovative legislation. So, Dr. Jagannath, I wanted to have your views in terms of how you believe such a legislation, which has been the work of extensive, I would say, discussion between the public and the private sector, can change the fintech landscape of Mauritius.
Yeah, thank you, Davina, for that question. I think very interesting. So I will start with, I think, from the word of Jamshid from FSC. I think that has been a very big game changer. So I think this has been really worked out in a very comprehensive way. And as you rightly pointed out, we are Mauritius among the very first country around the world to put such a legislation that I would say is very comprehensive in terms of legislative framework. So as you said, the Virtual Asset and Token Offering Services Act, which was brought in 7 February into force, 7 February of 2022. So this brings a framework, I would say, for new and developing activities regarding the virtual assets and initial token offerings. So we have been, I would say, Mauritius, for the last 7 or 8 years, we have been positioning ourselves as a fintech hub. And there have been many operators coming in, whether you would see internationally or locally. However, there was this issue, always facing Mauritius was in terms of anti-money laundering and anti-terrorism. I think this was one of the recommendations of the FATF, specifically recommendation 23. And I think this now, with this legislation, we are now in a very good position, especially, I would say, to start with, regionally. I think we are the first in the Eastern and Southern African region to have this specific regulatory framework. I think this was very, very important because, as you would know, in the region, there is already Kenya, there is South Africa, to some extent, there is also Seychelles that already are positioning themselves as a fintech hub. And we now, I think we have this competitive edge with this regulatory framework to really now position ourselves. So I think now from an operator perspective, now I'm talking as the president of the Africa Emerging Tech Hub, where, many operators for the last 3 years, still we were having issues in terms of attracting those investors. So there was still this question of, trust. And in terms of legislative framework, I think this is one issue that all the, I would say, those in the fintech space were having. So, for example, investors, how do I protect myself? In terms of anti-money laundering, there was this issue in terms of banking. We have heard that there are many innovative aspects as well from the Bank of Mauritius. So these were, I think, very important as investors, to come to Mauritius. So I think here you would see that from this legislative framework, this is here. Now, in terms of probably we have seen after this act, many operators have been discussing, have been analyzing, and there has been, myself, I've been involved in many, capacity building workshops where there is still, ways to improve. This also set the pace for new products, I would say, in the fintech space. Fintech as it is, in my opinion, is growing. We are having many products. We are no longer just talking about fintech. This comprises as well as AI, robotics, RPAs, and the very last one we have, everyone is talking now is the metaverse. So I think there is still, this is a stepping stone, but I think still there is the way now to improve these new products that I'm talking in terms of AI, because this is a very, very dynamic market. And I would say that we will have to improve on that. And probably there is also some challenges from investors' perspective that, for example, there is this cybersecurity that needs to be looked upon as well in terms of a law that is very important. So there is still room for improvement in terms of the law and to make provision for new products. But still, I would say that this law, there are different classes of license that has been provided from custodians, from brokerage. So I think the business is going to come. I'm very sure about that. In the other way, I think the other thing that we have to look is in terms of now the practical implementation for investors. That is trying in terms of licensing, the red tapeism. So I think these are ways now to look in terms of, as a one-stop shop, that investors or those applying for license are provided with a good service that could eventually, ease the way, ease of doing business that will encourage them. So on that, I think we are very much on the right track going forward to position Mauritius as a fintech hub with this new legislative framework.
Thank you, Dr. Durant. I think you touched on a very important aspect. While we want to position Mauritius as a fintech hub, we have the right framework, we have the right products. Nonetheless, challenges is a reality because you rightly mentioned we need to continue to focus on the ease of doing business and the operational challenges. And I would say, sometimes it's basic concerns which can make an investor decide whether to stay in a country or to live and go and search for other jurisdiction. And on that one, I would like to turn myself to Mikhail. Mikhail is the CEO of Mauritius Africa FinTech Hub. And I know it's a very challenging task because you have to deal with operators and, of course, investors who come to Mauritius when they want to set up startups. So you must be hearing all the operational challenges that they have to face. Would you please, Mikhail, share with us what are these challenges so that we can discuss and see how we can really mitigate these issues?
Awesome. Good morning, everybody. Thanks so much, Davina, and good to be part of a full soccer team here today. To answer your question, do we have 2 weeks, enough paper and enough moaning to go around? I think, if you go to the MAS or to Singapore, if you go to New York, if you go to London, if you go to any jurisdiction around the world, you'll always have people moaning. I think it's in our human nature. I read an interesting article a couple of years ago, a research paper where human beings tend to tell 7 people bad news and only 2 people good news, right? So I think we inherently just moan. We moan a lot. So when it comes to the challenges that exist, there's always going to be challenges. I think the fact that over the last 3 years in Mauritius, we're seeing a massive mind shift between the regulators, both the FSC and BOM and all the other bodies in terms of working in closer collaboration is the step in the right direction. So I can list a lot of lists. There's a lot of lists, a lot of research that's gone down. But I think I want to turn the question around and say that even the people on the ground are starting to realize that there is a change that's happening, but also starting to realize that you can't change a carburetor and fix the car only, right? So when it comes to financial services, because it's a very regulated industry and space, if you have to change one act by itself, it does not mean that there will be directly change leading to an operator on the ground being able to do X, Y, and Z, right? When we speak about data, for example, and pulling information, that is just as critical. The technology and the open APIs between all the various stakeholders, that is what's going to be the success factor. And I think that we are moving in that direction locally in Mauritius. So some of the challenges have been addressed. I think one of the main issues when we first started out on this journey was the fact that even the banks themselves had a massive distrust of fintechs. Right? There was even instances of banks closing down fintech companies' bank accounts because they thought it was competition. Now they're realizing, and we saw a massive announcement earlier this year in Mauritius of Sim Finance buying into Fundkiss with the approval of the FSC. And that for me shows a massive mind shift in local ecosystem to say that both the incumbents and the established players are working together with the smaller startups for the benefit of the consumer. Okay, because for me, that is what we can't forget when we talk about fintech or financial innovation. It is the consumer that is driving the change, right? So when we're talking about things such as speed, we're also talking about things such as time. Human beings, we don't want to waste time. ATM came about because we didn't want to waste in queues, right? We can go anywhere, 24/7, access our money, right? Anywhere in the world. So the application of technology in this space, I think, has seen a massive shift. Massive change. Is going to stretch things, it's going to break things, and so it should, because change means we're doing something right. If we as a species don't evolve, we'd still be outside, chasing rabbits around, right? This is the whole part of evolution, and applying technology in a financial services space is what is going to be taking us forward, right? Because I want to have choice. If I don't like my bank, right, I want to shift. Right? That means that you need my consent, or my new bank needs my consent, my data, my information
all the back end with 3 or 4 clicks of a button for me to open a bank account, and I don't have to do anything else. Right? And that's where the financial innovation comes to front of mind. If you, for example, look at we heard about diaspora, sending money back home. Why in the world were people 10 years ago paying between 10 and 20% of their hard-earned money for 7 people to take a piece of their money for me to send money home to my granny so she can feed my family? I mean, what the heck is that about, right? You know, how do I send cash to refugees in a war-torn country? I can't. What do I put in a post? Do I just, you know, send it via the post office? So the digitization process is an evolution of this space, and everybody here in their own way is playing a part of that, right? From the regulators to the stakeholders to the academia to the everybody here in this room watching this online is part of this journey. It's not a fad. It's not going to go away. We're not going to move back to cash only and move forward. It's all about thinking and going forward. So to answer your question around the challenges, there's going to be a lot, right? Whether it's from data, which is, by the way, the new oil, right? And some of the banks, even in Asia, for example, are now talking about they will be the custodians of the data, right? And the fintechs will be the client acquisition and a product development guys because their product cycle is much quicker, right? Instead of going through all of that, etc. But they're working together. So the biggest challenge locally in Mauritius that we face at the moment is there's a couple of minor ones. I think one of the biggest one is that to the technology point is that how do we bring it all together? We've got pieces of an amazing pie, but how do we bake this pie so big locally and then expand it to the rest of the continent? And I think Mauritius is leading in this regard on the continent. I mean, we've got interactions with 33 other jurisdictions at the moment. And let me tell you, what is happening locally, they want there. Okay? So they would love to copy and paste. If you talk to even the big boys, even Nigeria, Egypt, South Africa, even they are looking to some of the things that are happening here around the regulatory aspect, but also on the education aspect. And how do we do it? Because this is a great place to build a POC, MVP, test it out, and then take it to the rest of Africa as we see on the ground. So for example, another local example, Peach Payments, right? A South African fintech set up shop in Mauritius, based here, employ people here. Why? So they can go into Africa, right? And that's what we want to see. That's what we want here. We want people to use Mauritius for the right reasons. And yes, there's going to be challenges. And I can talk about those challenges for the next 3 weeks, right? But I think everybody here knows them. I think there's a list of them. I think there's a lot of solutions that have come about it. Now it's just action. How do we bridge the info highway with the regulators, with the banking side, with the non-banking side, put all those pieces together, and it'll be a win-win for everyone.
Thank you, Mika. I think it's good to hear that we are working towards addressing each and every of these issues. But one thing that you mentioned was about, initially there was that problem of onboarding of fintech companies. Nusrat, as an operator in the sector, and you have a good knowledge of the African market as well, to what extent do you believe that the cost of compliance regarding the fintech-based activities and companies can actually hinder the growth of such sectors in the country, whether it's with regards to banking services or onboarding of these clients? So do you believe that this is actually hindering the cost of compliance, has an impact on the growth of the sector?
Yes, definitely. But just one question. If be it a fintech or be it a big company, if you want to open a bank account in London or in Singapore, the time that it takes you, I think it takes you more than 6 months to open the bank account in London or in Singapore. You have to go in person. The client has to go in person. Even in Dubai, you have to go in person. Mauritius is one of the countries, rare countries, where the client doesn't need to be in person to open the bank account here, right? They can send it to management companies. We have a wonderful system here where like the FSC has dedicated some of the compliance to management companies, and we do that on behalf of the regulator. But that said, the compliance, everyone knows today that compliance is a must. We can't do business without compliance. It's so important. We all know what we have gone through. We have been on the blacklist of EU and so on. And today, thanks to the good work of FSC, we are out. But if we can find a way to solve this pain point, right? It takes time. It takes sometimes 2 months to collect all the KYC when you have, 14, 15 investors. By the time you get the documents, you send to the FSC, the questions of the FSC, you reply, and you go to the bank, all your documents are stale. You have to ask again the client to give, the new documents. And the same clients, 6 months down the line, they want to open another company, you have to ask again. So it's really a pain point. If you think about from the perspective of the businessman who's busy and who keep his own documents, he has to go again, he's traveling all over. And it's like, it's really, put him off. If we find a solution, I'm so happy to hear that Bank of Mauritius and Financial Services Commission is coming with that solution. And everyone is trying to do that. We see that companies in UK trying to find solutions for compliance, but it's not there. If we can lead in that, Mauritius would really be leading, would be better than Jersey, Luxembourg, and the other countries. And that would really put Mauritius high on the level. Thank you.
Thank you, Nusrat. I think that it's good sometimes for us to hear the reality, because very often when we look at the country, we tend to see that, okay, we're taking maybe weeks to open an account, but it's good to hear that other countries as well, how things are in reality. And maybe I would turn to Mrs. Jerry to understand that in terms of the Bank of Mauritius, because we've heard what are the challenges, what are the actions which have been taken at the level of the bank to be able to address this issue, Mrs. Jerry? Or are there things in the pipeline that are being done to address this concern?
Thank you, Dovina. Picking up on what Nusrat has just said, we mentioned earlier the setting up of a system to facilitate digital onboarding of customers. I think that this would help to some extent, and I don't want to trespass on my friend Jamshid's jurisdiction. I know FSC also is working on something similar for global business companies. So in short term, I think we should be able to find a solution to this matter. But now coming to opening of accounts by commercial banks. It's true that Mauritius has recently come out of the FATF list of jurisdictions under increased scrutiny. But banks still have to comply with regulatory requirements which are based on FATF standards. So if we have come out of that list, it doesn't mean that we can overlook the requirements. We still have to comply with those requirements. And when these complaints came up to the Bank of Mauritius, we went to our regulators to understand what the issue really was. We understood that in certain cases, applicants, prospective customers did not comply with the regulatory requirements. So in that case, it was difficult for banks to open accounts. And it is very important to understand that what we have in our regulatory framework is not exceeding international standards. All that we have in these requirements are based on international standards. And these standards are issued by the FATF, the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision, and these are requirements that all countries are complying with. And one thing I'd like to highlight is that our commercial banks, they undergo due diligence by correspondent banks. And if any of our banks are classified as high risk, it will be subjected to enhanced due diligence. As you mentioned earlier, compliance is costly. So if these banks are classified as high risk, the compliance cost is going to rise. And I'm sure many of you must be aware of de-risking that is taking place in jurisdictions where the regulatory framework is not up to the international standards. I don't think any of us would like to see de-risking in our country. So it is very important to understand this aspect. And I know that there was a reluctance on the part of banks to open accounts for virtual asset service providers. We did not have a regulatory framework, but now that we have a law, and very soon I understand that Mauritius is going to make representation regarding the recommendation 15 of the FATF standards. And we hope that Mauritius complies with all the requirements. And in the light of that, we believe that our banks will have an appetite for such customers. So we'll have to wait for some time. And picking up earlier on what Mikhail said, I'd like to mention that we already have open banking in Mauritius for payments. The instant payment system offers that facility. Today, you can go to, there are some operators that have already implemented it. You just download their app. That app is bank or operator agnostic. You register any account with any other operator or commercial bank, and you can do transaction, and that is based on open APIs. Just to comfort you that you are working towards that. And very soon the Bank of Mauritius will be coming up with a guideline on open banking and APIs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Joy. I think we'll certainly wait for that. But one thing that you said, which is very true, it's once bitten, twice shy, because we don't want to get again on the FATF list. We need to have that proper balance between what is needed for the growth of the sector and the compliance as well. Naushad, you are currently at the FSI, the training arm in terms of financial services. Do you think that training can be the answer to somewhere maybe reduce that compliance cost?
Thank you, Dovina. It's great to be here with you today. I think if there's one advantage that can be gained when it comes to training, especially when it comes to ensuring that your onboarding to compliance teams are well trained, it is that the staff are likely to develop very good appreciation of compliance risk factors. So that would range from applying the risk-based approach for every client to make sure that you treat a low-risk client like one, and to make sure that you treat the high-risk client like one. And having been at the FSC for the last decade and now at the FSI, I'm sure my colleague Jamshid might agree with me here, is that if there's one thing that's important, is that we need to ensure that we have our stakeholders to strike the correct balance. The correct balance when it comes to managing compliance risks and also a deep comprehension of compliance risks. The dangers of not prioritizing when it comes to fintechs, or even, should I say, legacy financial businesses, prioritizing compliance training, is that people tend to develop a risk-averse approach, especially when it comes to high-risk sectors or sectors they are not comfortable with. And as we know, the fintech sector, it evolves on a rapid pace. So continuous training is more important than ever for institutions to keep pace. The one thing that we've been pleased to note in Mauritius is that the training institutions have responded quite well to the changes in the AML CFT, should I say, regulatory environment. The changes have been happening thick and fast during the last 3 to 4 years. And looking at what we've been doing at the FSI itself is we've recently had the launch of the International Graduate Diploma in Financial Crime Compliance. I think we've received a very overwhelming response for the first cohort that came in. We've had the chance to welcome staff from the compliance pool or even client-facing staff. And we've been also pleased to note that we've had a very good response from fintechs, should I say, in the payment space and also in the crowdfunding space. In addition to that, we've welcomed the staff from banks, management companies, insurance companies, and also insurance intermediaries. I think the participation and commitment to really upskill this staff really demonstrate the strong resolve of the, should I say, fintech firms, be it the banks and the rest of our stakeholders to, should I say, lay very strong foundations for our fintech sector.
Thank you, Najan. I think it's good to know that the FSI and as a whole is doing the right thing in terms of building the capacity around fintech. But I'm brought to understand that there is a bigger issue that we need to address. And Vinod, you are the CEO of Mauritius Finance, which is the Association of Management Companies in Mauritius. So I believe that most of them come to you with their concerns, with their issues. And I understand that most of them there are some issues that they're experiencing a shortage of skills and talent in the field of the financial services sector. To what extent do you agree with this statement? And what are being done? What are the actions that can be taken to address this issue?
Thank you, Devina. Good afternoon, everybody. We are, of course, 12 o'clock. Thanks for this question. In fact, labor shortage, talent shortage is not only present in this sector, it's throughout the country. The manufacturing industry is suffering with that as well. I mean, we all recognize that this sector is more service sector. And our service sector, the biggest input is manpower, is talent. Yes, in short, we have an acute shortage of talent in this sector. I mean, what we're doing already, you know, tomorrow we're doing a brainstorming session with all the stakeholders. But just to go back to Mauritius Finance, we represent not only the management companies, but our membership includes also the banks, the 5 big banks are our members, the lawyers, yeah, and we have got the big 4 audit practices. So we represent more or less, we are the eyes and ears of the financial services sector in Mauritius. So the members come to us with this complaint, if you want. And what's happening is we have seen that there are 2 things which have affected our sector in terms of labor shortage. Firstly, the lack of skills in the market, and be it at the people who are living straight from secondary school, A-level qualified people, or even from the university. Yeah, what's happening is that there is a mismatch, one of them, also shortage of the right skill in the market. What also happens is that after a few years of training, yeah, we have our competitors like Guernsey, Malta, UK, yeah, Luxembourg, we talked about them. People just leave. Now there's a big question, why do they leave? I don't think we're here to discuss about it, but there are various reasons. You know, there's another forum we can discuss about why people leave. Yeah, they say the grass is greener somewhere else, but I always tell them that the grass might be greener, but once I've tasted the grass somewhere else, you find out that the grass back in Mauritius is even better. Yeah, so there you are. I mean, we have been abroad, we have come back. There's a reason for us. So that's another one, and our chairman, who is also the CEO of a big company in Mauritius, he made the declaration publicly. Straight away, we need something like 1,000 to 1,500 people in the sector. Why do we need it? It's because this is what drives the growth. Yeah. So the shortage is there, I've said it. And the consequences of this shortage is that we start poaching amongst ourselves. Yeah, Nusrat would agree with me. Well, because some more people leave and go abroad, we want the best talent. So we start poaching amongst others. And what's the result of this poaching? There's something at stake. We poach using salary. And now when salary hikes up, what happens to the cost of the jurisdiction? The cost of doing business goes higher. Yeah, the quality is there, the cost goes up. Then this becomes like, are we still competitive compared to others? We say we are very competitive, are we still competitive? Yeah, so these are the challenges that we have. And we have seen also that because of this shortage, in certain cases, the opportunities that might be coming to us, we cannot take these opportunities because we don't have the talent. We don't have the manpower. Yeah, that's first. Yeah, secondly, also we have seen that in the case of our members have come up to say, look, we have driven business from Mauritius to other parts because we're international companies and we are present elsewhere in the world. So some of the back office work that we were doing, we are now contracting out to other countries. Yeah, so the work we had here that we were doing or good at, we are contracting to others because it is cheaper and because also labor is very expensive in Mauritius. Now on our side, what are we doing Mauritius Finance? I just mentioned at the start. We were doing a brainstorming session. It was, I would say it was overdue, but given that Mauritius Finance is a new organization, 1 year old, we say that's the initiative we are going to do. Tomorrow, we're going to have this event. You'll be present as well. Some of the members here will be present. So we'll be looking at the reasons for the shortage, why people leave, and then what you can do. But in short, in Mauritius, at Mauritius Finance, we are doing a lot of training. Yeah, my friend from FSI mentioned training in AML and other fields. On our side as well, we do training. And we have partnered ourselves with internationally recognized institutions, the International Compliance Association, the CISI, and also the STEP. They are the international organizations with whom we collaborate to offer training facilities to our members in the industry and also outside the industry because the courses we offer are available to the public as well. Okay, that's what we do. We have just done some courses in CRS. We are doing doctor's duties. We're doing other training in terms of the personal exemption and the GDPR. So training is the word. And we have made certain proposals to the higher end in terms of how we can try to cater for this shortage, overcome this shortage. First of all, we have to increase the base itself, the number of people eligible to join the industry. What happens is, Devina, we have been involved in other quarters where we realize that the people at A level itself, they are not aware of what the industry is all about. Do we blame ourselves? Yes, I think at Mauritius Finance, at my level, I think that we have to take part of the blame. And also we have to be able to get that platform where we can speak to students. We have spoken to students a few weeks ago, and believe me, they were surprised by what we told them. They were not aware of it. So going to them, telling them what the industry is about, what are the opportunities. People think that you have to be only in finance or do something in AML or do something in economics only. These are fields where if you qualify, you have got an opportunity in the sector. No, not really. We're taking people in mathematics, we're taking people in statistics, we're taking people with IT. Yeah, so they have to know about it. Yeah, we have to be given the opportunity to be able to speak at the university. We are collaborating with the University of Mauritius, the Middlesex and others to go and speak to the students. Tell them what opportunities are there and what do you need. Yeah, we think that the qualification is the only thing. Believe me, you know, we all know here, it's not the basic qualification. There are more than that. There's this attitude thing. This jumping from one tree to another. We have to inculcate a different culture in our youth. Why jump from one tree to another? Yeah, and this is another problem. Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry, I'll take a few more minutes to tell you a few other things because I think it's important. I also think at the level of university, some work can be done. Yeah. For example, before the students take the third year, the final year, maybe they should be given the option to take certain courses that would give them this edge to join the industry. For example, get a module in compliance, in fund, in trust administration, something like that. Second one is, again, at the university level, why not encourage, I won't say force, but I would say encourage students to go for a 6 months placement. Currently, if I'm not mistaken, it's only about 3 months they're given from one to another, from one semester to another. Maybe for the last year, it could be extended to 6 months. Then they go to the industry, they see what's happening, and also for them, they'll be like, do we join the industry or not? Otherwise, after the qualification, we go to industry and we're going to leave after a short while. For the industry, on the other hand, we know this guy is good, or this lady is good. And once she's competent, she can come back to us, okay? So let me end on that note, and well, if you get the opportunity, you can say more. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Vinod. I think that I've already heard the beep, which is telling me that we need to wrap up. But just before I would say closing this discussion, I think there is an important topic that I would like maybe to hear from each of our panelists today, is that Mauritius, we are trying our best to position ourselves as the fintech hub for the region. And the region means trying to understand the African region, trying to have the right formula to position ourselves as the sustainable international financial center, which is aware of fintech. So how do you think what are the immediate measures that we can take towards really bringing Mauritius to fit this role? Maybe I'll go from Mrs. Jaring. We can just do a small roundtable.
Yes, I believe that the opportunities are there, but we need to act fast. We need to be the first movers because competition is becoming very tough. We have certain jurisdictions like Rwanda, Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, who are coming up very fast. So now is the time to move. We need to come up with ideas and actions that give us the advantage of first movers. Mauritius is, the Bank of Mauritius is currently working on the potential introduction of a CBDC. And we are among the countries more advanced in this project in Africa. So that is one. And earlier it was mentioned about regulatory sandbox, innovation hub, and the digital lab that the FSC and Bank of Mauritius are working on. So I believe that this will provide an important advantage to us if we can take this cross-border. Mauritius being a very small market, the prospects are limited. So it's very important that we work towards taking this to a regional level. And that will require input from all concerned stakeholders. And we need to coordinate and, promote the country as well-governed with solid regulatory foundation and take this agenda high on our table. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, I'm going to echo those words. As a small jurisdiction, our USP in the market is speed. Singapore is right next door to India and China, and yet they're punching way above their weight because of speed to market, and the barriers that they have to go through are just that much smaller. But that's, I think everybody's going to really speak about the speed. I'm going to throw a curveball out here. I'm going to say, why are we trying to work towards an FATF list? Why is Mauritius not looking to be the benchmark for Africa that South Africa looks towards? Right? Why aren't we building a framework that's so good and globally recognized that people want to emulate us? Okay, why are we trying to emulate somebody else, especially not on this continent? Thank you.
Just to echo on what you have just said, Mauritius is being looked upon as a model with regard to FATF standards.
Why aren't we having our own standards, Mauritius standards recognized by the world?
Thank you. Maybe Dr. Jagana? No shot.
Thank you, Davina. I think when we look at fintechs, right, we're looking at very small businesses with very humble beginnings, with huge dreams to really upscale, be it from a national, regional, or continental, global, should I say, ambition. I think the desire for scaling when it comes to fintech is something that needs to be looked at. I think fintech entrepreneurs, when they look at Mauritius, they're going to think, can I achieve my dream here when it comes to scaling? And I think Mauritius has done quite well. We've got a general consensus when it comes to the way forward and how we want to take it. But looking at the drivers of fintech in Mauritius, we're looking a lot at how we can innovate and really improve our offering when it comes to business facilitation and all the general ecosystem, as you mentioned. And I think the driver of fintech in Africa is a bit different. It's different in the sense that it's driven a lot by financial inclusion. And I think it's very important for Mauritius to really consider how it can align its direction in terms of modernization and probably try and capture how it can develop expertise when it comes to financial inclusion. And I think when we've managed to really build that expertise and found that alignment, I think Mauritius will very clearly position itself as one of the front runners when it comes to Africa.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you, Davina. So I think as a closing remark, I would say, first, I think we need a national coordinated approach, because how I say it, in Mauritius, we are calling fintech, but we are still attaching it to a financial services industry. If you look worldwide, let's say in Singapore, it is this sector, the fintech sector, comprise 40% of the workforce. In Bahrain, it is 60% of the workforce. If you look at around the world, even in India, in China, this is an industry by itself. So a national coordinated approach is very, very important. For example, classifying fintech as, in terms of a licensing for opening a business. Now it's still, going in terms of an IT sector. So that's very important. Second would be in terms of the talent. In Mauritius, I think there is, we have all been listening, there is in need for talent. There is no workforce. But a paradox is that, after 3 years, let's say at the University of Mauritius, we have come up with, an MSc in fintech, fully financed, fully, approved by the HRDC, where there is no single cent to pay. And after 2 years, we got only, 10 students. Right, still fully funded. So, I mean, for me, it's like we have re-advertised it. It's now being advertised. So, on one hand, we are saying there is no capacity, there is no talent, but other side, when it is on offer, there is no one being attracted. So, I think there is a question mark here. So, if we really want the industry, so that's national coordinated approach is very important to place ourselves in terms of a strategic point to position ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jagana.
Yes, thank you, Davina. I think I will join Bhavesh in saying that the national coordinated approach is very much required. I think there's a second problem, which is awareness and knowing what is on the table and what we can use. I take Info Highway, for example. This is the long road, this is food banks. But MoCloud is something that you can do right now. And this addresses what Nusrat was saying about compliance, about knowing the customer. This can be done right now because MoCloud has the sharing API, which the Ministry of ICT would give to you should you apply to the ministry. Obviously, when you apply to the ministry, there is a governance committee. There would be the Attorney General's office present, the Data Protection Office present, the Ministry of Finance, Economic Development Board, but we'll discuss about it, and it is part of the things that we can do. So definitely the second point. Third point, I think people are not aware and are not exploiting. We've got a third thing, which is MoPass. MoPass is the digital ID. So it is there. Obviously, there is a problem with it, problem en guillemets, in the sense that if you want to do 2FA, two-factor authentication with it, you have to go to a post office. We are working on that to open it up so that it would be doing liveness tests online. You would be able to validate your so a lot of work is coming, and MoPass is going to come into MoPass for business. When you mentioned about for the legal person, we are addressing that. So things are happening, but I think one of the weakest point we have is awareness. And once we know about it, we should exploit all this. And the last thing is about Mosign. Mosign is about digital certificates. Mosign is a second certification authority. People have the choice in Mauritius. They may go to eMudra or they may go to Mosign. Mosign has been set up by the ministry, but Mosign has one more thing that nobody has on the market today, which is e-sign. E-sign is what? Is that a company, you've got an application, you need to get somebody to sign it, your customer. And that customer, you don't tell him to buy a digital certificate and come back to you. You can give him a digital certificate on the fly, like a one-time password. It's a one-time signature. But you need to pay only 10,000 rupees per year for that. 10,000 rupees and you do any number of signatures. You can imagine the concept. So it's just a question of not knowing, not exploiting. Today we've got plenty of tools on the market, but we need to use them. And second point is about, and that's why I like the national coordinator of it, the question of digital skills. We need to tackle it. I think it's a coordinated approach. We need to see how do we tackle that together, how we see what's happening, what are the things, what are the gaps, where we do plug them. And thirdly, about Cybersecurity Act. We've got a Cybersecurity and Cybercrime Act enacted last year in December. Second point with it is that it is going to, once the National Cybersecurity Committee is formed, and I believe it's a question of a couple of weeks or months at last, it will define critical information infrastructure sectors. Banking is one of them. Insurance is one of them. All critical information infrastructure sectors, companies, organizations will be required to provide a IT security audit report every year to that committee. Like financial audits, IT security audits. Imagine what we're doing. We're tackling the IT security issue. So basically, there are plenty of things. I think what is harming up today is the awareness issue. Thank you.
Thank you. There's so much that have been done, and there's so much more we can do, right? I'm just thinking that, you know, how Africa sees. It sees that we want to tell everyone to come to Mauritius. I've been approached by people from Rwanda to go in Rwanda. I've been approached from someone living in Cape Verde telling me, we want to learn from you. Please come and stay there. We give you so much facilities and replicate what you've done in Mauritius in Cape Verde. So we will not be the only one. We have to act really fast. I'm just thinking that, you know, we have the Africa Fund. We've not heard much that has happened. And Mauritius could, like, you know, we all know that governance is so good in Mauritius. And we can, I mean, if we can create a sovereign fund, government doesn't need to put huge amount of money. Like 10%, it is capitalized 10% by the government of Mauritius. And then they go to all these DFIs, DEG, IFC, KFW, AFDB, and raise money and then have the topping class managers to manage it. Be it someone that has done, it doesn't need to be a Mauritian, it can be Mauritian, it can be, you know, an African, it can be anyone, but topping class people to really manage it. And it would be, and that fund, we can use that to invest in Africa. It would be seen that Mauritius is not only taking, it's giving back. It's giving back. If you see the amount of money that has been raised in the fintech sector last year, in year 21, it's $7 billion just in the fintech sector in Africa. So the potential is really, really, really huge. Another point I want to make is about what Bank of Mauritius has done for Mocash. You know, the pain that Africa is more than 50 countries, right? More than 40 currencies. The pain that people have on the African continent to transfer money. You, Bank of Mauritius, already have the technology. If you could create an African payment system where the clearing is done here for the whole of the African countries, that makes a difference. That puts Mauritius really high, right? And a third point I'm going to tell you, which I'm ashamed of, but I think every time I go and I like to speak of it. It's really about, we forget that we are an African country. We always say the African continent, we always say Africa. We are part of the Africa. And the way we treat our African brothers and sisters in Mauritius, when my friends tell me, you know, the way they were treated here, and I don't know what to say. You know, and European, the white guy from Mauritius, the treatment he gets is different. When someone with black skin comes to Mauritius, the treatment he gets is different. We need to change that mentality. And there's a whole of education that needs to be done. It should start at school. We should introduce African culture. And if we see our future on the African continent, this has to change. Thank you.
Thank you, Nusrat. I think we're already having some innovative ideas cropping up, so that's very interesting. Thank you.
Yes, from my side, I fully subscribe to all the perspectives shared so far by our distinguished panelists. And I'm really personally confident that we as a regulator for non-bank financial services sector, that we would continue to pledge our deep commitment in terms of actions. You know, this word action has come up from all of our panelists distinguishingly. So I believe action speaks louder than words. We have witnessed a lot of forums, like lots of strategies, lots of roadmaps, but what is necessary for us to really continuously and on a sustainable basis thrive as a recognized and reputable fintech hub would reside in the fact that there must be concrete results, outcome. So that was my first remarks. And secondly, I completely rejoin Mrs. Jerry in her perspective that we need to find ways and means, effective ways and means in a consultative environment to pitch Mauritius for its fintech developments on a cross-border stage. As a way of mention, I don't know, I would invite our panelists today and our audience as well. You know, look at Gift City. And if you get into the pace of work that they have been doing over the last two or 2.5 years, it's amazing in terms of the substance, in terms of the groundbreaking new pieces of not only regulatory frameworks, but it also encapsulates incentive mechanisms. The loss in date, it has come out 3 or 4 days ago. They have come up with a specific regulation for fintech sector incentive regulations. And I would really urge everyone who is interested, have a look at this piece of regulation. Mm-hmm. It certainly is in line with several of the key conditions that have been mentioned on the panel. So I believe that we have done some work. There's a lot more to do, and we are moving in the right direction. And my concluding note, I wanted to reassure Nusrat and our industry players, you know, on this aspect of whether banks are going to admit or accept VSPs, rest assured that the way we have designed this VETOS Act, banks as well themselves, they can get into this space and be licensed to conduct. So if we are hoping that banks will enter in this space, de facto, this gives additional confidence to the ecosystem. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Jamshid. We're just running a bit over time. You have 1 more minute, Vinod. Le mot de la fin.
Thank you. Yeah, the last one is the one with the least time. But anyway, look, basically, I believe that charity begins at home. We have learned members of the panel here, and today, I mean, I'm talking about myself. I've learned a lot. There's so many facilities available, but are we all aware of it? That's the first thing. Let's not go to Africa unless we ourselves understand what's available. Yeah. Okay, that's the first thing we have to do. Then we can go to Africa. But when you go to Africa, it should be a concerted one. Yeah. What do we pitch over there? We talked about Africa. I really agree with you. I stayed 2 years in Africa. Believe me. Yeah. At times we are Africa's our brothers, at times you are Africa. We are not Africa. So this type of promotion, this type of message should be like, yes, we are coming to you, but not we are the best in the world and coming to you. So why are you coming to me? Yeah. We boast about ourselves and we go there, we boast about ourselves, but we're going to them. We're looking for business. Yeah. Concerted approach, single message, and please, let's not be fragmented. Yeah. Why the ministry would go on its own? I'm not saying it's doing it, but why would EDB go on its own? Why are the players asked to accompany? Why are the operators there? I mean, why not the regulators? Yeah, in other parts of the world, they're doing it. Yeah, maybe we don't, on our side, we don't do it, but if it's possible, why not? We know, I'll talk about Rwanda. I'll give that example. Rwanda, you know what they're good at? Talking about themselves. Yeah, and from the start to from top to bottom. Even the prime minister does that. The president does that. Yeah, can we have that type of approach? If we can, great. Let's do it. Let's send the same message. Let's go together. When someone is sitting there, he's got questions. The operators, the regulators, the players, everybody can have the same, give you a similar answer. That's what it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Vinod. I think that I must thank all the panelists for your very candid response to the questions, and your very, it's been a valuable contribution. I think the answer is this. Today we've come together and so many ideas are already popping up. We're already learning a lot about what's being done in the country and what has not been in the public domain for so long. So one thing which has come is have a concerted approach, work together, and so that we can have one messaging for the country and to bring forward financial innovation. Thank you very much. I know we've kept you waiting for lunch, so I wish you bon appétit. Thank you.
I just want to take the opportunity to, once again, on behalf of the MRIC, thank every one of you who've been attending, who've taken the time to stay with us well beyond the scheduled time. Those of you online as well who've been following. And a special thanks to the moderator, as well as all the panelists who've given, I think, a really dynamic discussion. I take the word of Mr. Simansky. I think this discussion could have gone on for 3 weeks if we allowed it. So we will have a follow-up, definitely. Tomorrow there's going to be a summary session that's going to capture the essence of what's been discussed today, and looking forward also discussing with the other groups who've been looking at the 5 other sectors. We'll all be on board for a 20-minute discussion tomorrow. So once again, thank you very much, all of you. Si, 1, 2, test. Testing 1.
Oh, hi. Testing, testing. Testing. Testing, testing. Yes. You want it? Testing. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, bon. Mari, bon. My clicker. Clicker, proceed. Not yet. He's totally confused now. This is the danger of last minute update, you know? Buku problem. From my panelists and speaker. Hey, how are you? So that okay, thank you, sir. Right. Down, okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. This is our distinguished panelists. And to start the ball rolling, let's bring Avinash, followed by Dr. Shiba, followed by Jenny, followed by Dilam, followed by Nishti, followed by Vikas, followed by Roshan. Now, before we go for coffee break, this is a 30-second challenge, and we'll start with Avinash. And let's come back at 3:15 sharp for the resumption. And without further ado, let's start the Q&A session with this distinguished panel. And with that, let's conclude with action plan. From a strategic standpoint, this is how it look like. From a quick win, short, medium term, this is how it look like. And with this, I'd like to hand over to the host of the day, Dr. Vikram. Thank you. All right, good. Right. Very good. Now, my part, because my part got video.
This setup is only for the panel discussion.
Yes, yes.
So I think all the panelists will sit here.
Yes, yes.
And then I'll call them.
Presenter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. As I present, you get my panelists up.
The speakers will be there. You're not having panelists.
No. Look at the.
Dr. Vikram. Doc, can I test out this first? Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Video.
Could see many positive developments and trends taking hold. Let's look at some of the top economic.
Okay, with this, Okay, very good. Now, where is Dr. Vikram? Okay, you test your whatever flash. I'm good. And boss, you want to test your one? I know you want to test, but let's